Well, a Facebook employee has left the company over disagreements about their hate speech policy, bringing attention to the social media platform's political diversity.
An article in Wired called "Inside Facebook's Stormy Debate Over Political Diversity" describes that employee Brian Amerige and why he calls the company's hate speech policy, quote, dangerous and impractical. For more on this, let's bring in the author of that article, Issy Lepowski. She's a senior writer for Wired who covers the intersection of tech, politics, and national affairs. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So this was a really fascinating article. I thought it was kind of interesting. He's now a former employee of Facebook. His name is Brian Amerige. He wrote this memo describing and accusing Facebook of being intolerant of different views. And unlike the guy from earlier who wrote a screed
at Google,
mm-hmm. His name was
James Damore.
James Damore, and his story went viral because everybody thought that what he was saying was wrong. He was sort of railing against diversity in the same way. This was embraced by Google.
It was embraced by Facebook.
I'm sorry, by Facebook.
Yeah. So I think that's really interesting. So James Damore came out last year, and it was sort of at the beginning of this swell of activity about is there liberal bias in Silicon Valley, and now this guy Brian Amerige is kind of riding the crest of that wave, and there is this huge groundswell of activity in Washington. You have senators and members of the House and these Republican leaders going out and criticizing Facebook. You've had these tech leaders coming before Congress and really getting, lambasted by members of Congress. So I think he knew very well what the sort of cultural zeitgeist was and that he could really ride that wave. And he came out and he considers himself an objectivist of the Ayn Rand sort. And he says, I'm not a liberal, I'm not conservative, but whatever I am, Facebook is not really tolerant of me. And I think what's really interesting is he says, not only did Facebook not fire me, but they engaged me and they said, how can we help? And I think for some members of Facebook who were really offended by some of the things he said, that could be a really interesting tension because they felt that he was, sort of harassing certain members of the Facebook community with some of his comments about, among other things, the transgender community.
So you think the only difference between him and Damore at Google was really the timing in terms of sort of public sentiment? Do you think the fact that we're sort of inching closer and closer to the midterm elections and people are becoming even more sensitive about how we react to this sort of stuff might have had an impact?
Well, I think it's two things. I think Facebook is certainly very, very conscious of not upsetting the right. They've already gotten enough flack. They don't want to do it again. There's also a difference between their messages, right? So in Brian Amerage's memo, he basically said we're a political monoculture. I want to work on bringing us together, fostering political diversity. For some people, that's a little bit of a dog whistle. But James Damore's memo basically said that women are not biologically qualified to be engineers to the same extent that men are. And so for Google, that was an employee coming out and disparaging half of their, not half of their employee base. It should be half of their employee base,
but it's not.
But a large percentage, yeah.
So one of the things that I found really interesting in your piece, Issy, is he says he's a political he's objective about politics, but he's read Ayn Rand.
Right.
That sort of gives a little bit of insight into sort of his politics. And then he says, and there's a line in your piece that says that he dreaded a Hillary Clinton presidency, but he finds Donald Trump's presidency dangerous and disturbing. Well, there are a lot of members of Congress who are Republicans who also go on television and on social media and say, yes, what Donald Trump said was dangerous and disturbing, but I vote with his policies 98% of the time. And I know that, how you vote is personal, but did he share with you who he voted for? Or, he says he's a political he's objective about his politics, but it doesn't sound like he is.
Right. He didn't share who he voted for, but you do get the sense that he comes at things from a conservative perspective.
Right. I mean, why not just admit that?
Right. Well, so what really got him in trouble was initially there was a mural inside Facebook that said gender free, and it was supposed to express solidarity with the transgender community. He said this is a radical left-wing term. It has no place in the Facebook office, and in fact, I'm disgusted every time I pass by it. So that's what got him in a lot of trouble. And
He's disgusted every time he walks by it. Okay.
Exactly. And so he says, well, I was saying I'm disgusted by the mural and the fact that Facebook would take such a political stand, but obviously people within, and we talked to trans members of the Facebook community, and they said, you know, this was deeply, deeply hurtful. And he admits, he said, I know that I hurt people with those comments, and has tried to, he started this Facebook group called Facebookers for Political Diversity, and he tried to amend those comments and sort of add to them in a different setting.
But it just strikes me
he didn't
that
get fired,
no,
right?
he didn't get fired.
You know, very important.
It strikes me that if what Facebook was a right-leaning organization, he'd have no problem with the policies that they put into place. But because he perceives it as left-leaning, those are his issues. Although I do think that it's important that he and Facebook has said what they want to see is attacking. If you attack someone's ideas, that's okay. Attacking someone's character, not okay.
And I do want to point out that you can still call yourself politically objective and choose a party to vote for.
Sure.
Just because he may vote Republican doesn't mean he's not objective. That's, you know, his perception is that's the better party, right? So I just want to make sure that we're not slamming him in that way,
we're
right?
not slamming him.
Because we don't know what's in his head. Izzy, thank you so much.
Thank you.